So we can start on the left-hand side. Do we expect to see Allegiance do something different in their picks and bans or take things away from Imog here?
They should be able to look for a composition that's going to burst down the Gulf here. If they're going to lean on that dual lane, you got to make sure that you fight fire with fire. We saw Memory of Gabe having that raw for this objective secure and the multi-man snipes, which found some double kills for Hurriwind, which was great. But the Zeus ultimate and the detonate is good, but the snipe from raw is a little bit better. Quicker.
Solid play from Hurriwind in the mid lane there as well. Those snaps were really on point for the most part of that game. Thanatos and Thoth banned out so far, as well as Sir Ket by Allegiance. Priority to Sir Ket this season, it seems, from North America, at least for the first set of the day. A lot of focus onto her.
Surprisingly enough, we saw Team Allegiance ban away the Thoth and the Janus, as Sir Ket was actually banned from Memory of Gabe away from Weekend, so it's Weekend's not priority to necessarily take Sir Ket, even though that is kind of his logo with the wings.
But it appears North America value is an army very highly there with the ban there over the fact of Sylvanus was up and available. PolarBearMike going to lock in the Sylvanus for himself, more than likely here as well. And it's now over to Memory of Gabe, where there's still a few things available here.
Smart transition from Allegiance between Game 1 and Game 2, recognizing the fact that Eonic with the Sylvanus, once he got Blink especially, was very problematic to deal with. Taking that away could also set up now for Metyankey to play the Zeus effectively, because Zeus without Sylvanus is just not as effective. Having to rely on Weekend to always set up the Zeus ultimate was good, but it's easier when you have a Sylvanus.
Well, last game we saw Memory of Gabe go for a very teamfight orientated composition around sustain and survive in these engagements. This time it looks already with the Janus Ratatoskr drafted, they're going to show they've got more style to themselves with a more mobile cross-map rotations available to them early on.
Because of the fact that Janus was available and not having the Sylvanus, there's no point to realistically run Sylvanus. If you can run Sylvanus in Raw, you might as well take the Janus for the global pressure, complement that with the Ratatoskr, and look for some side lane pressure.
I think this combo could be quite nasty, though. The Isis Susano is not something we really saw last season. The Isis wasn't really around at the same time as Susano, but those two together at the start of Season 4, if you think about the amount of control at level 2 these two have, as well as damage output, that's a very nasty composition.
They have high base damage, great, decent scaling, as well as their cooldowns being relatively quick, so they could both go for some cooldown reduction and look for picks, which is why we see a very defensive mindset coming out of Memory of Gabe for Eonic yet again, playing the Khepri. He likes the Khepri, he likes the Geb or the Sylvanus. You can't really shut him down at this stage of the game.
Do we expect Susano to go to Weekend as well? Or that could be a flex to Cyclone?
It very well could be for Cyclone. He has played it before. Once Susano was first released into Smite, he has been practicing that very consistently in that solo lane. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a flex pick, but it should go to Weekend here because of the synergy paired up with Isis.
Well, a lot of focus in the counter bans from Allegiance there, the second banning phase on Vermana and Hercules hitting Whalrus here. So Whalrus looks like he's going to default over to the Sun Wukong, very safe pick over in the solo side of things. I think Wukong maybe a little bit underestimated so far this season. I think we may see him rise as time goes on.
He's very good once he hits level 7 and above, making those rotations, can really shut down the mid laner, but it's going to be the Chaac coming out of Team Allegiance. Not a god that I'm normally used to seeing out of CycloneSpin. I don't expect Chaac to go into Weekend's hands at all either, so it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to transition into the solo lane.
If this was any other team, you'd be Chaac solo, Susano jungle, but you can't be guaranteed here when you're watching Allegiance. But then look at this. Snoopy's going to pick up the AMC.
With this defense from the Khepri, with the Rising Dawn, probably having meditation as well, it's a great idea, especially considering there's no global pressure really out of Team Allegiance. The Ratatoskr is on the side of Gabe this time, so it's a lot safer for Snoopy to run this kind of a hunter.
And then as well, I actually think Khepri and Muzen Cobb will outpush Sylvanus Rama at the level 1, just because like the bees that will get thrown out from the Muzen Cobb is a little bit quicker than the auto in hands that Rama is going to have to fire here at the start of the game.
Definitely the right mindset to have coming out of Memory of Gabe. So it is actually going to be CycloneSpin with the Chaac, still going for the very aggressive relic choice onto the Sunder. It didn't really help him out, I would say, during the early laning phase. So I would have liked to see him get the teleport, because once he did get picked off twice, he lost a lot of experience by not having that teleport.
We'll see what he does this game. The two supports going for similar things this time round, though. Bit of a trade-off here, because Eonic last game went exactly the same build you can see Eonic's got now. However, PolarBearMike did start with boots and potions instead, but now he's going to match what Eonic did in terms of consumable choices, except he's gone for health potions over mana regeneration, which is quite interesting to me. I'm surprised he didn't go for multi-potions just for a bit of sustain from both. He's relying a lot on not spamming his abilities too much and making sure he conserves some mana. And the Watcher's Gift, of course.
He's probably expecting to take a lot of damage between Cynosure and Hurriwind, so it's not a bad idea, especially when the sustain out of Sylvanus is not really that much to bank off of, having to play it rather safe than sorry.
Bit of a different start here again. Mike in the mid lane with Metyankey looking to invade the speed buff. Meanwhile, you can see it was Cynosure and Hurriwind started in the mid lane, and now with the push power for Imog's dual lane, because Eonic came to the dual lane with Snoopy, they can go into the jungle and look to strip away the red or the purple. On the right hand side though, speed's being taken and blue's being taken by Allegiance here. So far, I'm favoring Allegiance with how this is going.
So far, but look at this, Snoopy with the red buff. He's going to be able to pick up the purple buff, so it's going to be eventually 2 buffs for 2 buffs, but look at this. The speed buff wasn't actually taken quite yet.
Hurriwind nearly got caught there with that, going through that portal for a second. That portal was just ever so slightly off his target for Eonic to pick him up. Otherwise, I think we may have seen a very early beads coming out there from Hurriwind back to the safety of his own half of the map. Elementals now going the way of Allegiance too, as well as the right-hand Harpies going the way of Allegiance, and they've still got their speed and blue buff available. This start for Allegiance is a lot better than Imog's, just based off how much experience and gold you can see the differences.
I'm surprised though Allegiance didn't like to pick up the speed buff. They just kind of like let it on to be on the ground. Weekend is sitting in the laning phase without a speed buff of his own. He still has a speed buff that he can grab on his side of the map. It's just a min-max issue where if like you have the mobility from your passive, why wouldn't you pick up that speed buff?
Hang on a second, this could be a great call in response from Imog, looking to start the Gold Fury, knowing Allegiance are all on the right-hand side of the map here. With the bees and the dot damage coming out from the dual lane power, they're going to sneak at Gold Fury early on and actually take a lead in this game.
And that's really important in Season 4 because the Gold Fury has a worth more value than Season 3 previously. Season 3 was about 100 gold per player right off the bat. Season 4 now is 150 per player. So this is really important to get early Gold Furies. It's still going to have the same amount at the later stages of the game, capped off at 350 per player. So getting off to a great momentum, Memory of Gabe.
And it really shows the difference of having a whole team on communications together and being able to do all these interesting starts that have twos and throws. There's no correct start right now. You know, there's benefits to each start, but there's also counters to each start the teams are trying to work out. Eventually, it'll find its footing and everyone will play the same way more than likely, but there's always people looking to reinvent.
And this is why I feel that the Gold Fury side is the more important side to really control, unless you're finding kills, that is, on the soul lane side, because that Gold Fury is very easy to take out. The gold value is really important to take advantage of in Season 4. And with 4 buffs for 4 buffs on both sides, Memory of Gabe having a little bit of a lead, not too much at this point, about 600 gold now. Snoopy though, level 6, Oceans, not even level 5 yet.
Not even level 5 yet, because Oceans has just been left alone. He didn't have any jungle to take like Snoopy did last game when he was in this situation. Instead, he's just going to continue to farm on his own. He will slowly get ahead here though if we do see more rotations coming out from Eonic to support Snoopy in this lane. As long as Oceans can just continue to farm, he should be able to even this back up. But look at what Snoopy just walked back to lane with at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, thanks to that Gold Fury.
The Transcendence being finished for Snoopy. He's going to have more mana, more MP5, more damage heading into the early to mid-game portion here. And that's going to be problematic for Oceans because he is a Rama that wants to get into the late game. He wants to max out his steroid and then look for the boxing exchanges, whereas Snoopy, he's going to clear the wave and then look to box you, making it more difficult to really get the gold from the waves.
Well, we've got to switch across the map here as once again Allegiance are going to invade the right-hand side of the map. Imog, meanwhile, have invaded the left. They're going to steal the red buff as Allegiance get the blue, and now the speed on top of that one. They don't get as much as they would have liked Imog there, as Allegiance did come out of that trade better, as the purple hasn't spawned just yet.
Not quite yet, but Snoopy still applying a lot of pressure onto Oceans with these tower shots onto those minions. That's 25 gold per melee minion being denied to Oceans. That's going to eventually separate the gap largely enough where Snoopy can really run away in this 1v1.
Not often you actually see an Muzen carb in the Pro League. If you've not seen, there's loads of little interesting facts about a Muzen carb as well. Such as he's one of the only hunters to attack left-handed, which is one of the first things. Your basic attacks come out your different hand, which makes it feel very odd most of the time and can throw you off a little bit.
It feels a little different than most hunters, obviously, but with a player like Snoopy having the mechanical prowess that he has behind him is not not familiar with it, rather, is something that I'm looking forward to saying. He is always going to be hitting those in-hands, whether it's coming from the left or the right.
And on top of that, he's going to have the bees hives to actually go down, allow him to get a bit more mobility, a bit more attack speed, and some sustain as well can really help out with that as time goes on. With the Transcendent stacking already, though, his wave clear is just one ability and walk away. He can play this very safely or very aggressive, knowing that Oceans is going to take a little bit more time to clear each wave.
And you could tell that Memory of Gabe is inside Allegiance's head because they're basically getting away with this Muzen pick for scot-free. Weekend has been focusing on that solo side for so long that now this Muzen is level 8, still no pressure.
But in the sky is Cynosure. They're looking for a pick on Ocean. Sadly enough, though, Oceans is just playing this very safe. You even saw the space and time fired there as well from Hurriwind in the mid lane. They were really looking to be precise there and pick off Oceans as a nice little group. Unfortunately, that's 2 global ultimates that are down right now that Allegiance could try to exploit to get back into this.
About 70 seconds remaining on those 2 cooldowns. It wouldn't be a bad idea for Allegiance to start grouping up and look for a play, maybe finding somebody out of position. It could also be onto Whalrus, considering the fact that Gold Fury is not going to respawn for another 50 seconds. Whalrus taking a lot of poke from CycloneSpin as he is level 9, and that Sunder could eventually play a big factor during this little 1v1.
Indeed, but now Whalrus has that ultimate available. If he sees the Sunder and gets a moment to do it, he can always pop the ultimate. Chaac's ult is fantastic for damage and pretty good control too with the silence and knock-up. But the problem is that it's very telegraphed. It takes a while to wind up. So you immediately see that, you're like, well, I'm going to use my ultimate myself and get out.
It's going to take about a 1 to 1.5 seconds from him to land back in the ultimate. So either way, Solo Lane's going to be waiting for their time to truly shine. Level 8 on the side of Whalrus. Both of them still going for that Breastplate of Valor with that Tier 2 Silver Breastplate. Having a little bit of physical defense, a little bit of mana is going to have more poke value in the laning phase. But mid lane, PolarBearMike not quite on the mark onto Hurriwind.
Just trying, but now with Eonic rotating in, Mike catches that quickly. And the pull on Eonic is pretty good. The silence as well. The Spirit Ball would have connected there, but obviously they just used too many CCs at the same time there, really, just to try and combo that onto Eonic and put him in a bit of a worse situation than he was. One thing you got to remember about Isis, that silence does interfere with abilities, which means that if you can silence Eonic at the right time, there's going to be no resurrection.
It also strips away some of the magical protection, making him more vulnerable towards that Isis stun, the Isis Wing Gust, and the timing of the damage onto Eonic was crucial for Allegiance to go for the 3rd invade in a row, taking away the blue, taking away the speed from both Cynosure and Whalrus.
I will say, Tony, on paper, look at the 2 compositions these teams have drafted here. I don't have a favorite at 7.5 minutes in. With how the game started off here, we're pretty much neutral for the most part. Yes, the first goal here went to IMOG, but I still can't call these teams. They've both got good teams that scale well into the late game as well. Benefits and negatives on both teams.
It's going to be very important to see how Eonic really gets off those revives to be able to keep his team alive, whereas it's very easy for PolarBearMike to get off those multi-sustains with the Wisps. So Snoopy looking for the 1v1. Weekend trying to play a little frisky.
I don't think Snoopy was looking at the 1v1. You should have returned to lane, and Weekend was like waiting around the corner for a little cheeky catch, but Snoopy caught it out in time. Snoopy level 10 up against the level 10 of Ocean, so they have even things out in that duo lane overall. CycloneSpin a little bit of a lead on that Chaac against the Sun Wukong for the time being. Pretty sure that'll normalize as well. And it's almost like a patient waiting game for both teams, because it benefits both to let this game continue on to a later stage. They both have hyper carries and better damage and control as time goes on as well.
They also have more global pressure on the side of Memory of Gabe. They've only used it once so far this game. They were too far away to really take advantage of Oceans, and the whole reasoning behind that initial gank attempt onto Oceans was the fact that he has the Aegis and not the beat. So had Cynosure connected onto that ultimate with the knockup, the stun would have followed up, all the damage would have followed up from Snoopy to buy enough time to find the early first blood.
Yeah, you just can't break the CC chain with the Aegis if you're in the air, because you don't get a chance to do that, unfortunately. Mid lane, bit of pressure again from Isis, as well as Eonic on the Khepri was looking for pulls as well. Metyankey's doing pretty well on the Isis in the mid lane. Obviously, Metyankey come to the mid lane. He was played on Saw for a little bit last year as well, but he seems to be finding his footing pretty firmly in this mid lane here. I've not really seen too many issues.
Something we haven't talked about is the mid lane itemization between these two players, between Hurriwind and Metyankey. Hurriwind going for a very aggressive build with the Doom Orb, already finished with 50 stacks.
Pulled in is Hurriwind, pulled in again is Hurriwind, pulled up into the sky is Hurriwind, and pulled back to the tower. is Hurriwind, thanks to Eonic and the ultimate too. A lot of investment there, but that was a nice little play from Allegiance. The combination of CC was fantastic.
They did have to invest one additional ultimate rather than Memory of Gabe. It was Hurriwind and Eonic that traded their ultimates defensively, whereas Weekend, Metyankey, and PolarBearMike really wanted to find an early pick, but the timing of it doesn't really allow for an invade quite yet. Speed buff is about to respawn for Memory of Gabe, but Hurriwind will be healthy heading back into the mid lane.
And here's the funny thing about this now, Tolly, is because, you know, the first blood has not happened in the first 10 minutes. The first blood will just be bonus gold normally at the start of the game, or maybe get an early buff ahead of your enemy team, steal one away. But at this stage, a 4v5 scenario impacts a Gold Fury fight. It impacts maybe a Portal Demon fight now as well, which can make a bigger impact overall.
Especially once these players start hitting level 12. We see CycloneSpin hitting level 12, getting the teleport, still not using his Sunder anyway at level 1, so it's kind of questionable as to why he continues to go for this. Either way, has transitioned into getting his second relic. We see Snoopy at level 12. He'll be able to pick one up as well. So once we start seeing these 5-on-4s, that's going to be the telltale sign of which team is going to start getting even more Gold Furies, because it could even be Memory of Gabe would have been behind had they not gotten that earlier Gold Fury.
And going back to that, you know, that Sunder on the side of CycloneSpin here, I like the idea of the Sunder. But at the same time, as a caster, we get the same viewpoint as you. I've not really noticed it being on cooldown much, if not ever. So if that's the case, then if you're not using it, why not get it? Why get something else?
Yeah, why not wait till level 12, right? You might as well look for the rotations, because you can always make a big impact in the team fights around the mid lane at level 7 through 9. You never really know when a big important team fight is going to happen, especially with Hurriwind's ultimate through space and time being used in the dual lane. You could also make that rotation to dual lane with your own teleport.
But 2 games isn't enough to just write off the fact that Sunder at the start is not a good idea, or it's not working out, you know? Maybe this is just the 2 games here where the game's been a little bit different, where there's not been as much aggression in the solo lane, no turnaround kills or gank potential available. Maybe in future games we'll see the Sunder is you know, a viable and good starting strat. At the moment, in these 2 games, it looks like a wasted investment as your first relic for the time being.
Another thing we haven't talked about is all those invades, but in mid lane, Metyankey forced to go into the beats. A pull onto Whalrus, he'll be okay, but all those invades from Allegiance on the right-hand side of the map makes it so that if there was a team fight, that Sunder would play a crucial role during the little skirmish. But Memory of Gabe elected not to contest those speed buff, blue buff invades because of that reasoning, instead electing to just invade on the left, playing it really slow, allowing to lose stuff on the right, grabbing things of their own on the left.
Now they are all still trying to find picks if they can for the time being, but the big news is because it's all farm orientated right now, no real deaths, everyone's going to accelerate their builds to level 20 a little bit more. It means there's going to be more gold available for these, more items online. But hold that thought, I'm seeing a window of opportunity, and they are going to sink this Gold Fury for free. There's no way Allegiance can get there in time. The backs just came out at the wrong time from Allegiance in vision, and in the end, I'm going to get a free Gold Fury and don't even have to fight.
CycloneSpin teleported in the back, but it doesn't matter because he's a Chaac.
He's a Chaac.
He's a Chaac. What's he going to do? He's going to throw an axe.
Yeah.
Make it slow. He's gonna make it rain on you.
It sounds like you don't like Chaac, Tolly.
He's not good in mid to late game team fights, I feel like, compared to other warriors. He has good control in the laning phase, but it's gonna be Allegiance gonna push down this tier 1 mid tower Typhoon coming out.
A lot of focus onto Eonic here, but Cynosure is gonna make sure Weaken is forced out on engagement. Space and time will not hit home there, just split the uprights. In the sky though is Cynosure looking for a good ultimate, but he responded nicely from PolarBearMike to make sure he bounced up instead. Metyankey's getting pretty low, but the sustain comes into play. Whalrus on the front push back Allegiance again, but both teams are still alive. Only the clone of the Monkey King fell down.
Eonic still having his ultimate, but the sustain from PBM is good enough for Allegiance to keep pushing down this mid lane. They're going to look for an invade on the speed. They could catch a lot of members here. Are low from Memory of Gabe.
No real ultimates available. Weaken pulls Hurriwind into an awkward spot, but doesn't have the damage alone to bring him down. So in the end, he does get the beads out of Hurriwind there, but that's all she wrote on that engagement.
Speed buff was still taken by Cynosure, and this gives a little bit of a window for Allegiance to start up this Portal Demon, recognizing this is Memory of Gabe. They're going to concede that no problem at all. They recognize that they were just too low to really hang with the sustain coming out of PBM, as well as the control coming from Weaken and Metyankey. We haven't really seen it too much this game with the engagements that we saw the earlier attempt onto Hurriwind, where they forced out those double ultimates, but after that point in time, it's been a really quiet game.
So a small opportunity here for IMAG to take a lead, but it's not a huge lead or anything to really write home and tell your mum about right now. It could go back in an instant. As on the left-hand side, we're going to see the purple buff given out to PolarBearMike. Right-hand side, Allegiance were looking at pressuring that blue buff for the time being, but I believe they did bring it down there, I'm pretty sure. I want to say they brought it down, but I can't tell based off the icon on the minimap saying it's still available.
Normally with Gold Fury being down, teams will look to put more pressure onto the soul lane, and with Weekend right there on the right side, CycloneSpin wanted to stick around, I'm sure, but he had to go back to base to finish off that Void Chill. It's going to give a lot of penetration, or to make sure that now, once Weekend and CycloneSpin start focusing on the same target, that target will be a lot easier to take out, especially with a combination of the Sunder from Cyclone.
Has a real feel this game totally of one of the games that's going to be one team gets a deicide and it's all she wrote. It has the smell of it in the air of how this has been played so far.
15 minutes, so we still haven't seen a first blood, but we could see it here.
Oceans versus Snoopy. Ocean's in trouble. Don't forget Disarm comes into play. Oceans, that portal wasn't for you, son. It was for the train of IMOG to run through and bring you down. First blood, 15 minutes, and now they can look for a tier 1 tower.
A little slow on the Aegis during the ultimate of Snoopy. Either way, the ultimate from Hurriwind was on point. Still got Aegis out, but great opportunity for basically target practice out of Hurriwind. Gonna find the tier 1 tower on the left. Tier 1 mid is gonna fall as we see Metyankey pushing that down. CycloneSpin still putting pressure onto Whalrus with Weekend. They forced out the ultimate, but the tier 2 on the left is falling.
It's gonna fall on the left for sure if they continue working on it. They might even be able to pick up Mike as well here. So it's a tier 1 in mid for a tier 1 and a tier 2 and their first blood for the time being. There's not much more Allegiance can do in response to what IMOG managed to do on that left-hand side. And look at that 1v1 trade between Oceans and Snoopy as well, Tony, because that's the telltale of where that all began. I think one of the things is you don't play against many AMCs these days, and the one thing that you can forget about is how much damage you can do as well as what his kit does, because after Bees is applied to you for so long, I believe it's 4 seconds, you get disarmed.
That's a huge
And that's great against someone like Rama, right, who's an in-hand carry.
Didn't even have time to really go into that ultimate because of all the damage he took. He had to go into the Aegis. You can't cancel your Aegis to go up into the sky as Rama, so he just had to hold that out. Even without the ultimate from Hurriwind, he was still going to die. Maybe he would have gotten into the sky eventually, and that could have maybe bought enough time for the rotation from PBM to make a factor. But now it's Allegiance that's going to have to worry about this global pressure from Hurriwind and Cynosure.
God, with the pace of this game in terms of kills right now, you can see that Hurriwind's really trying to exploit this as well. Gone for Doom Orb and on top of that now Book of Toth, just to make sure he gets even more damage out. Double stacking's not something you see too often, Totally, but if you can get away with it, it's definitely wise and useful.
And this is a different Hurriwind from what we're used to seeing. His positioning has just improved so tremendously, and with the addition of Eonic playing this Khepri, he should be in a relatively safe position to constantly get these stacks, and even if he does for whatever reason die, he'll still get those additional 25 stacks once they do dissipate after the death. So no problems for Hurriwind. He's sitting with the first blood and the only kill of the game currently, almost 18 minutes into the game.
Well, the Gold Fury just landed and spawned on the left-hand side right now. Both teams in a relatively good position to keep an eye on it for the time being. Ward coverage is in favor of IMOG for the time being, but here comes PolarBearMike just to check things out as well. Allegiance is just holding on for the time being, waiting for an opportunity. It looks like Allegiance were the ones that tried to make plays earlier on than IMOG, but it's IMOG that have been more successful with trying to do what they wanted.
It's the 2 Gold Furies that IMOG was able to steal away, as well as the global pressure. Even though they weren't successful onto Oceans the first time around, the second time proved fruitful. They also got 2 towers as the result of it. Eonic now going to look to zone potentially as the 3rd Gold Fury getting started.
Very low already, but they will reset it. Cynosure on the back, so CycloneSpin on the back, being the focus of investment right now. Into the sky goes Cyno, gonna hit a 3-man knock up there, but most of them got away with it. Cynosure forced to Aegis. In response, we can get in low and running for his life. Dot damage may come into play. PolarBearMike is getting low on that tree as well. As into the sky goes Oceans, looking for snipes. 1, 2, 3rd not gonna hit Cynosure. Now Cynosure tries to turn that around, but he's gonna turn tail literally and run away. Meanwhile, Whalrus versus Metyankey and Ocean still going on. The rest of IMOG chased out CycloneSpin on the right there. There could have been picks either way. In the end, it's just a tree that falls. And in the jungle, if a tree falls, no one's around. Do you even hear it?
No, you don't hear it, but they do hear the Gold Fury dropping Memory of Gabe, finding their 3rd one, having 2 meditations at the end of that team fight. It's going to make it very tricky now for Allegiance to really hold this. It might be a Fire Giant attempt here.
It's Portal Demon.
More than likely going to be the Portal
risky.
Demon, unless they find another pick. Metyankey a little bit overextended. Whalrus going to jingle bang him.
And the big key here with IMOG's composition is their engage isn't the greatest. They don't really have much hard engage outside of Ratatoskr. What you're going to do, have Whalrus run at them and hope for the best with a Tiger? You can do that, but it's more about flanking or portals, if anything. Well, Portal hits onto Cyclone as well as Unstable Vortex. Portal Demon getting very low, and he's going to get aggroed now by Allegiance in response to take control. Cyclone on zone due with a big old ultimate hitting through with the silence. Good knock-up from Weaken as well.
Memory
but the
Gabe
Portal
found
Demon goes the way of Imog, and Cynosure's got his ult available.
He wants more. He's going to find the knock-up onto the tree. He just respawned. He's going to fall yet again. PBM, no sustain for Allegiance. Another 5-on-4 opportunity for Memory of Gabe. They're going to all back. They're going to pick up any more items to use that portal to get back into the map. And if they want to, they have an option between mid or solo. Or the fire, maybe.
The Fire Giant is definitely one of the biggest potential options for him here as well. On zone duty is Eonic on that Khepri right now. Cynosure wrapping around the back.
Look how quick.
Fire Giant's not going to take long to do when everyone's leveling pretty well so far. A lot of farm in this game, and a free Fire Giant for Imog as well. Game 1 was a very good back and forth little fight. This one's been a more tactical engagement of being in the correct position at the right time, and Imog are winning that battle as well.
Great tactical use of Frenzied Ritual, able to burst down the Fire Giant in about 7 or 8 seconds flat. As soon as they started it, obviously, it was only Metyankey there to really want to contest it, but by himself, he would definitely put himself overextended. That would have been another clean pick coming out of Memory of Gabe, but now they have the Fire Giant buff. They're going to start grouping up more than likely and start looking to strip away some of these towers.
Is that key here? Go for the towers, or do we go for the Phoenix on the left? That's the question.
That is a good question as well, but you'd rather play it safe than sorry, because at this point, you might as well get more gold. You're sitting as a team collectively, 53,000 gold. That's sitting at about 4 to 4.5 items as a whole. So what you really want to do is get yourself to about the 60 to 65,000, get the 5th items complete, work on your 6, and then look for those Phoenixes once you get that 2nd Fire Giant.
Well, at the moment, Imog are slowly grouping up in mid lane. Whalrus off to the right, keeping CycloneSpin in check that he can't push up as well. But 4 members strong in mid with the Fire Giant should be enough to get this tier 1 tower for free, as Allegiance do fall back to the tier 2. Do we see a tier 2 defense here out of Allegiance?
They shouldn't really, unless they get a really good engager coming out of Weekend, pulling multiple members away. PBM doesn't have Blink either. He went for both Shell and Meditate, so it's very difficult for him to really find a multi-man knock-up ultimate, as well as long as Memory of Gabe position themselves accordingly.
Imog played this very patient here. They could have sieged that tier 2, but chose not to, recognizing that there was men missing and Weaken in the jungle. But Whalrus has found Weaken and forced him out, as Cyclone has to ult to get away from the abducts from Eonic. Again, a small win for Imog. Ult for 0 investment from Memory of Gabe.
Whalrus still sitting on the right-hand side between mid and right. Wants to find a flank, but instead going to regroup on the front assault here. Whalrus is going to go in. Stun coming out onto him. A lot of damage is taken, but he's going to go into the clouds.
But the cloud will regenerate a little bit for the time being with no minions here. Imog still do not feel comfortable trying to just bring down the rest of this tier 2 tower. It's at half health already. New minion wave on the way, but Isis and Chaac on defense and a Rama. It's not going to last long.
Still having the Fire Giant. Memory of Gabe are about to go in here. The
Space
ultimate from Cynosure. He's going to dive into the backline, finding the knock-up onto Metyankey. The stun as well, doing a lot of damage. Knocked up, using the Aegis to buy a little bit of time. Weaken going to fall to Snoopy. Stun onto Hurriwind, using the Wing Gust to disengage, but PBM is in a lot of trouble.
And now Oceans is as well. He's beads in early to roll away back to safety. But the real investment here, as Cynosure does get Oceans, is the Phoenix in mid lane fall. Cynosure's going to get hit by the Titan pretty heavily. Good whip from Metyankey to make that at least a 1-for-1. But it's not in the grand scheme of things. This is the first kill Allegiance have got. And Imog are looking to close this one out, it looks like.
Yankee's gonna fall. CycloneSpin's gonna use his ultimate yet again, buying a little bit of time for the Titan to do some damage. Still getting chunked away at half health. This is gonna be the fastest game so far, I think, in the SPL.
It's looking pretty quick here, Tolly, but they're all getting very low right now. But the Titan is a lot lower than that. In Memory of Gabe. 2-0 over Allegiance.
Clean, very clean performance out of Memory of Gabe. They have adapted their strategy from going from a sustained composition to a global ultimate composition, making it work.
Well, let's head over to Taco to break it down and run through some of those replays.
Thanks so much, Hindu. And as you guys could tell, Memory of Gabe did go ahead and take away the set with a clean 2-0. But I think a lot of what it came down to, in the first game especially, was drafting. Drafting was just absolutely crucial as far as Memory of Gabe was concerned. They came out with that heavy team composition, and it's really difficult for a team like Allegiance to try and deal with that double healer sustained comp with Ra and Sylvanus. It can be pretty devastating considering that you can't really engage, because if you don't get the pick right away, late and you know that you're falling back, immediately you're going to be on the back foot, considering that the enemy team is just going to heal up every single time. That's exactly what In Memory of Gabe did. They pretty much bled out Allegiance in this first game, and essentially ensuring that they could go ahead and win every single objective fight, as well as contain a lot of the jungle to themselves, because Allegiance just had no weight in order to get into it. And we saw Whalrus from the get-go going ahead and being involved, picking up that first blood over in the solo lane with an excellent pull from Eonic, which really got the ball rolling for Allegiance. And Hurriwind, not to be left out, he was popping off with these raw snipes. It's just any time a target was low, they just kept grouping and lining up, in particular for Hurriwind. And it's almost like they forgot that the raw 4 was going to be there, but ultimately, Hurriwind's positioning absolutely excellent. His patience was on point, and overall, I just think that Hurriwind was doing everything right. Not only was he ensuring his team would be healed up throughout every single team fight in case Eonic wasn't there to provide the same sustain, but he was going ahead and picking up those last kills for them, and there's just not much more to say about that one. I mean, they went ahead, took the game 1, and then going into game 2, we saw a lot of the similar things, except for the fact that Allegiance had a really strong early game draft, but they didn't really utilize it to their fullest potential. You saw them kind of playing into In Memory of Gabe's hands, and that In Memory of Gabe had a lot slower team composition. They were playing it out for the mid to late stations, especially when you see the AMC coming on the side of Gabe. But Allegiance, they just weren't really initiating as much as they probably should have been in those jungle and objective fights. And so we saw it right away. In Memory of Gabe just went ahead and ran away with it by keeping it slow. And so on top of that, we just had to ensure that everything was going to be perfectly fine because of the fact that Snoopy had the AMC and he was coming out swinging on that Muzen Cobb. We saw him right away with the dual lane first blood at 15 minutes, which is quite slow considering the pacing of the game. But, you know, sometimes you just got to take up that 1v1. Snoopy was looking for it. You could see the bloodthirst in his eyes. You see Oceans trying to take the portal not meant for him, and then Hurriwind, like every Janus player ever, not respecting the 1v1 in the slightest and stealing that away from Snoopy. But Snoopy had to ensure that he was getting a couple of his own, going in and engaging onto the Susano, picking up the kill on Weekend, following that onto a solid kill on PolarBearMike, and unfortunately for Allegiance, this is kind of just where their downfall happened, but not to be left out, Whalrus went ahead, engaging in these team fights whenever necessary. And it was really important for him because you could see he was utilizing his abilities and his kit to its fullest potential by ensuring that he was peeling as well as disengaging for his team, getting his jungler out safely with these on-point Sun Wukong Tiger stuns. And overall, it's just really important for your solo laner to be providing the peel that you need to ensure that your carries can do what they do best, which is damage. Speaking of solo laners, we actually have Mark Maloney here with us today. Whalrus, how's it hanging? You there? You there with me, buddy?
Yeah. What's up?
How's it going? How are you feeling after your 2-0 win today?
Great. It was actually my first ever 2-0, believe it or not.
Oh, well, I mean, you're playing with an entirely new roster, and so how's it been, you know, getting the synergy online with your team?
It's actually really fun. It feels good to actually be able to, like, consider yourself, like, a top 4 team, you know? Like, just, like, yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, you can really tell that there's a lot of communication going on between you guys, and so overall, how has it been kind of just, you know, being left to hang and do your own thing in the solo lane?
If you're talking about the second game specifically, we had to play it really slow because our strategy that game was more on the duo side of things. So I thought Wukong was a smart pick because I could just chill in the solo lane, and it's really hard to die with that god. So I pretty much just lost farm for my team, but that was fine in the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly seemed like you knew how to play with a little bit of a gold and experience sufficient, and I mean, I'm sure that you're used to that kind of matchup against early lane pressure. So
yeah,
I think you did a great job there. And on top of that, are there any particular things that you want to point out that you felt was particularly important for your team in that second game?
Hurriwind in both games honestly just played out of his mind. Shout out to him. A lot of people give Hurriwind a lot of bad rep, but I think he did great today, and he deserves a lot more praise.
All right, well, that sounds great. And got to you guys again. And is there any shout outs that you want to go ahead and give?
Shout outs to my team, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, that's always great to hear. Congratulations once again. For those of you who missed it, that was Whalrus, the solo laner for In Memory of Gabe, who are looking to be a very strong contender for North America in this season of Smite. And